Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Your magical kiss take me just so far. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Don't leave me like this, dangling from a star. Set me all aflame and it's so pleasing. It sure would be a shame if you were only teasing. So my love, before I go, turn the lights way down low and talk to me. Talk to me, talk to me.
Well, hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this edition of the Don McKeag Show. We're very happy to have you with us every Thursday from 6 to 7. And this particular Thursday, I'm going to break our normal conservative shtick and turn it toward Christmas, toward this season, which comes under so much attack in some areas, but at the same time brings out the best in so many people for a short period of time. Most of you, I hope, have watched us before, and I'm glad to be here. My idea is to try to convey some facts, some truths, some opinions, and give you an opportunity to answer in agreement or, of course, disagreement. That's what the value of talk radio is. But I will tell you that the Christmas season, I've lived long enough, like many of you have, to see as much as it's changed and become even more materially oriented. And of course, we have this huge technology growth where people can do their shopping online. And we have, of course, unfortunately, so much affluence in so many areas that people are forgetting the source of the holiday. Then we have, of course, the do-gooders, feel-gooders that I can tolerate it for just so long, and that is, of course, that it's somehow offending someone. We are, by our own admission, 76% of the United States population, of all races, I might add, declare themselves members, whether it be active participants, but they consider themselves Christians. That's a little over 3/4 of the population. Now, what does that matter? Well, it matters when I believe the majority is under attack at all times because of the governmental control and the media control of being liberally oriented, where they're more concerned with minority positions than they are with majority. And I'm going to just do some of the nice things about Christmas. I'm going to give you information that you may or may not have heard. There's some that I have been researching. I learn something new every year because I go looking for it. I am Christian. I have not been an active church participant, but I believe in the Christian religion, and I believe in the message of the Christian religion. I believe in the idea of trying to live life being kind to others, but also standing up for yourself. Remember, Jesus biblically took on the Pharisees and the tax collectors. As mild and peaceful as Jesus Christ was, he tipped over the taxpayers' tables because they were collecting taxes within the temple, if you remember that. So there was a side of him that would not tolerate certain behaviors. If you're new to the show, I do a radio show on Cape Cod on station WXTK FM every Saturday from 11 to 1. And I'd be happy to have you listen and to join us on air there also. Now, Ken Bukes is my producer and also my partner in this venture. He and his wife, Karen, you may know, do the Wednesday show, Talk of the Town, which is another really fine show. But what I wanted to do today is to just point out some things to calm down a little from my usual conservative concerns. Some might call them tirades, and that's fine. But as I say on the show, we're here to educate, irritate, sometimes infuriate, moderate, hallucinate. But we're not here to imitate. We're here to try to give you an opportunity to speak your mind, but also, having been a former teacher, high school English teacher, I left it to go into the restaurant business on Cape Cod, but I've always missed it. I loved working with young people. I was also a coach, baseball and football, and I loved working with kids and loved seeing them learn. But what we have today is we have a lot of divisions, and the divisions unfortunately come from, as we've seen this last couple of weeks, lawlessness versus lawfulness, and people make mistakes, whether they be in law enforcement or law breakers, but we can't have an attitude where we really work our way toward an anarchy where people are just supposed to be able to do just about anything they want and then not be punished. But that being said, I wanted to read what I always do on the radio and on this show, Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King, a great man, great civil rights leader. We owe him a lot, but his father named him after Martin Luther, the devout Catholic priest who saw the Catholic Church in disarray, saw the treatment others were receiving, and saw the corruption in the highest ranks of the church, and fought it under the threats of his life. He was certainly excommunicated, but he stood his ground. He loved his God. He loved his church, believed wholeheartedly in it. But it was being run by people like our government and everything else that we've had in the past and present. We are always subject to the failings of mankind. We all have our failings. Unfortunately, some people with huge failings and lack of experience and knowledge end up in top positions where they are making the decisions for all of us. Well, Martin Luther once said, and I repeat this again, I want you to digest this, in the Christian faith, but it's also in Judaism, it's in the other religions where the good people believe this, not the extremists. He said, cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular. But he or she must take that position because their conscience tells them it is right. And now at this Christmas season, there are a lot of people out there parents especially, I always felt for them, who are struggling just to pay their bills. And now they're worried about being able to get their children the gifts that the kids want. They're pounded on the television, and everywhere they go, the malls, with this ad campaign and this, you gotta have this and you gotta have that. And there's a lot of stress in a lot of the people. And we have it in adults, and we have it in the wealthy, who equate their success as a human being with the amount of money they have, the house they live in, the car they drive, the schools their kids attend. This is what gives them their self-worth, and I believe this, again, is where our country is decaying at the center. It's become too materialistic. Some say there's no war on Christianity, but there is. 76% of the people are Christian. And, you know, well-intended and all, and when you can't celebrate Christmas, you can't have a creche, you can't have Christmas decorations now on public property because it might offend the minority. You've got a war against Christianity, against traditions. There's no harm in having the Christian decorations. We have now seen liberals taking over schools, and you can't have Christmas decorations, and you can't have celebrations of the Christmas season in classes in the schools. That's unheard of in my time. I don't know of anyone that was offended. Yes, someone might not feel like they belong. That's what happens in life. That's what you teach young people. Not everyone can make the Patriots or the Red Sox or the Celtics. Not everyone can make $1 million. Not everyone can be elected to office. It's disappointing. That's life. But not according to some people today who make decisions. And I have a poem that I've always liked that, again, prior to my getting into the real Christmas season material and information, this is by Ralph Waldo Emerson, about what success really is. Now, just so you know, I'm not any religious leader. I am not an example of living a great life. I've had my ups and downs. I've also had my priorities out of whack for a long time. And I thought success was all the things I just told you. I was just as guilty as those that I know have these kind of values. And that is that somehow your own self-worth is determined by material things and by position, when it really isn't. But it's hard for a person to believe that when we're in the middle of it, and I was one. But Ralph Waldo Emerson's poem says it all. And again, at this Christmas season, this is where these kind of spiritual things come from. You don't have to be a Christian. It's spiritual. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, to laugh often, this is a definition of success. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and affection of children, to win the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. Now, a lot of people just can't get that it's that simple. But that is the truth. And I've known the millionaires and the big shots, and I've known the people that no one ever heard of, and I've seen more people who were never heard of happier. And when they left this earth, this is exactly why they were a success, because they, again, were that kind of person. I always think today, in today's wild world, but especially in America, which is, again, such, so disconcerting for those of us that grew up in the 50s, post-World War II, I call it, when we saw a togetherness and we saw so much a lack of discourse against one another. And it was, I think, because everyone had been touched by the war. They'd either lost a child or a husband or father, excuse me, or had one come home maimed for life. And so there was this idea that, we had won the war, we had sacrificed tremendously in life and limb, but we pulled together. And this is why I think of today, and I think of Jesus on the cross saying, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." And I am very concerned because I think this is what we see in the media, in the entertainment industry. We see a breakdown of morals under the guise of, oh, it's okay. It's been a huge change, and it would be okay with me if life was better. It is not. If people were happier, they are not. Oh, sure, there's a lot of people that get that temporary relief, and they're living good lives in their minds because they have the material things. But sex now is predominant in so many things, and it's advertised. How you can have more sex is advertised. All of these things that used to be kind of kept in abeyance because they are part of the 7 deadly sins. Lust is one of them. Greed is another. Resentment, envy. But anyway, I just also would like to put in a plug for the Salvation Army. For years now I've talked about it. I couldn't find the slip. But those red buckets that you see, I know they're in Plymouth, they're over in front of the Stop and Shop. And I can remember, I forget the stores that stopped allowing the Salvation Army to be there. It just, again, disgraceful. And it was because it was tied into a Christian faith. Just a case in point. The Salvation Army, the head of the Salvation Army makes, I believe, my memory remembers, but again, it could have changed. But at the time I read this particular article, which again, I wish I had, and you can look it up, I'm sure it's somewhere online, to show you why I always support the Salvation Army, why I say you should. They're behind, I guess, in their raising of funds now. But the head of the Salvation Army makes about $60,000 or less. That's all. And they have insurance and so forth. Now, this is a huge organization. On the other hand, just think about this. The United Way, those of you that give to the United Way, the salary for the head of the United Way is $1,300,000 or $4 for a charity. And they have a limousine, and they stay at first-class hotels. This is everyone that's had that position. The Red Cross, the head of the Red Cross, is paid, I believe, $800,000 or more now. Again, this is my memory recalling probably 3 or 4 years ago. I say this, I was a teacher, and this is the kind of thing that where you look at who really is serving the public. And what is service? We have an attitude now that if you work for the government, if you're a teacher, if you're a police officer, if you're a fireman, if you're a nurse, the nurses, of course, don't do as well. But you're supposed to make $150,000, and still you're serving. And I admire all of those government workers. However, we now have this mentality of paying more and more for people who going willingly into a profession, knowing what the salary was. My wife and I at the time knew, we both taught school, and we knew it was never going to be a high-paying job. I played the piano, I coached, she waitressed, she did a couple of other things, and we did just fine. But now, of course, it's a constant union negotiation for more money. And that's a little aside, but it's part of the attitude that's gone away from Christian belief. And that is, it's never been associating money with service to others. It was always a known fact, and that's why you got, I believe, higher quality people in those professions. They were not motivated by money. They were motivated by service to others. I guess I don't know why there's something wrong with the churches. We should be paying ministers and priests and rabbis. They should be getting $250,000, all the people they see, if you follow the gist here. But here is one of the things that I wanted to read, though, because I'm hard on liberals. I blame liberalism for the combination of the press, which is just out of control, and liberals in general. Kind, nice people, but they just don't see the damage that has been done by, again, softening positions where we need discipline. That's why there are the 7 deadly sins, to call our attention. That's why we have the 10 commandments. But that's why, again, the left and the people that I speak against, that's why they want to diminish religion in our lives. Now, you look up on Yahoo, I looked up War on Christianity, and there were 20 hits there, 20 online offerings of Jon Stewart, who dumps all over Fox, dumps all over the fact there is no such thing as a war on Christianity. Well, I've just given you proof of it. I've told you exactly what they are doing in not so subtle ways. You can't celebrate it under certain conditions. You can't do this, you can't do that. Oh, by the way, remember, they don't want "In God We Trust" on the coin. It doesn't say "In Christian God," it says "In God We Trust." A superior being up there dictating our lives for us, giving us rules. All people, kids, they need boundaries. We all need boundaries. We're comfortable. The human being's not comfortable with total freedom. We've proven it over and over again. That's why that expression, right? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Those people who have nobody to answer to, they're the ones that cause the wars. Well, anyway, this is a good letter that I'm going to read, though. This is by a man named John Shore, who's a columnist. I don't know, it doesn't list his newspaper or what. I guess he writes books too. But I like this because it looks at both sides. He says, "I like the conservative Christians mainly because they're so clear about what they believe. They know what the Bible says. They know who they are. They know what they're doing in life. Boom, they're solid. The whole backbone of America thing is no joke. The strongest trees, after all, have the deepest roots. Not a lot of wafflers in the conservative camp. Plus, they're super dedicated. Conservative Christians don't wonder if they're in the mood. They go to church. They go to Bible study. They show up for the church functions. They actually do stuff. Conservative Christians also tend to be, in practice, extremely loving. Liberal Christians think conservative Christians are harshly judgmental and sort of fundamentally hard-hearted. They think that if, in the middle of the night, a clearly gay guy showed up at the home of a Christian conservative in need of help, he'd summarily get a door slammed in his face. But he wouldn't. All the conservative Christians I've ever known are serious about putting God's love into practice. The fact that they're so sure of what they believe makes them more open to new thoughts, ideas, and experiences. If you're sure of who you are, you're a lot more open to discovering who others are. When things get rough, it's good to know a conservative. Now, before you say, okay, it's a one-way street, stay with me. I hope you haven't shut it off. On the other hand, conservative Christians can be too sure they're right about everything. It's too easy when you're a conservative to boil down what you believe into a really simple set of assertions, and to then never again question or allow those assertions to evolve. Then it just becomes about rules. Then it's too easy to make everything about who is and isn't on the right side of right. When it comes to something as complex as God and history, it's too easy for, quote, keeping it simple, close quote, to become keeping it stupid, which too easily becomes keeping it mean-spirited. Conservatives have a troubling propensity for closing their mind. I hope that isn't the case with me, but again, though, now we go to the other side, which is why I'm reading this, and I think it's worthy of it. I like liberal Christians because they're so generous with their love and respect. They're seriously focused on God's love, and they're not afraid to insist that anything that hinders that love must be suspect. They love Jesus. Jesus preached love. They're all about loving as Jesus did, period. Also, I like the way liberal Christians are so thoughtful. They listen, they reflect, they refine, they search, they question, they study. They understand that part of their job as Christians is to actively try to access the mind and heart of God, and they're disinclined to let anything interfere with that goal. They're not afraid to get inspired. They live with the confidence that God will never fault them for loving too much. On the other hand, liberal Christians can waffle like IHOP on a Sunday morning. They too often fall prey to thinking that the emotions of their loving feelings is really all they need to guide them, with the result that they never feel a need to be clear on what they actually believe at all. Maybe Jesus was mainly a social activist. Maybe the cross is a metaphor. Maybe Jesus walking on water was an optical illusion, and so on, until they may as well be astrologers. Yet for all their comfortable ambiguity, liberal Christians can also be altogether too smug, too sure, too condescending toward those who take the gospel as gospel. Remember, the liberals, they say 2 and 2 could be 3, or it could be 5. They tend to think they're smarter than they are. In the main, the problem with liberal Christians is that they can stay so busy remaining lofty and above it all that their rubber never hits the road. Many of them are better with compassion as a theory than as a practice. In the end, who cares? Everything's got its positive and negative aspects. All that matters spiritually is that each of us finds the place on the liberal, conservative spectrum where we're most comfortable. Each of us has to carve for ourselves our own niche, the one that's perfectly suited to us. And from there, all we have to do is live, love, pay attention, listen to God, and let Him pull us ever closer to His divine and glorious reality. Here's to the idea that we'll all eventually end up exactly in the same place. I hope you enjoyed that. I wanted to share that because that, to me, is very well done. It's truthful. The truth is so important, and you know, I have this, Napoleon once said, let me see, where is it? I got it here somewhere. Of course, I can never find something when I want. Oh, yes. 4 hostile newspapers are more to be feared than 1,000 bayonets. That's Napoleon. And we've got a lot of hostile newspapers now, and they're all one-sided, except for Fox News, and then they're vilified by the others. Listen to the news sometime. Are you happy hearing the news every night? Is there anything worse today? They can't wait to tell you about tragedy. They can't wait to find fault with the police. They can't wait to find fault with churches. They can't wait, most of all, to find fault with this wonderful country of ours. Excuse me. It is so sad to see the constant browbeating of what's wrong in this. Of course there's things wrong. Of course there are people who, in every position, abuse it. But I love how they're vilifying the police officers and they're vilifying the CIA. When we've been under attack, we still are. Weed out the people who've been abusive, and don't lie to the public, and they're lying to the public. Well, getting back to some of the Christmas thoughts here that I wanted to share with you. Ever wondered where the idea of elves came from? They are actually modern-day versions of nature folk described in pagan religions of the past. Some of you may have known that. The Holy Days and Fasting Act of 1551 in Britain declares that all its country's citizens must attend the annual church services held on Christmas Day. In fact, it goes as far as stating that no vehicle should be used to travel to church on this day. That law still exists on the books, although it's not observed. So in other words, you had to walk to church on Christmas Day. The tradition of burning a Yule log actually has its roots in ancient Scandinavia. Supposedly, the Yule log was a source of good luck, and its remnants were saved to inspire good fortune throughout the year. It was such a widely held belief that people even threw the ashes in wells to make the water safer to drink. It was once believed that any woman who went under a mistletoe and was not kissed would not marry the coming year. The annual Christmas pudding was more than just a tasty treat. Some items were placed in them which had the power to predict what the new year would bring. Coins were associated with a gain in wealth, a ring was a sign of an imminent marriage, and a button certified extended bachelorhood. This idea actually goes back to the Middle Ages, where the cake being served on the 12th night would come complete with a hidden bean. Whoever found the bean in the cake was declared king for that one night. If you counted all the gifts that were given in the song 12 Days of Christmas, you would realize that the number of gifts being presented, Kenny, do you know how many there are total in the 12 Days of Christmas, you know? 2 turtle doves.
I believe that my shoes off and counting my toes and fingers, I don't think I'd have enough room.
Oh, no. But you'll be amazed at how many gifts there are. 364. One less than the amount of days in a year. Imagine that. In those days, there were only 364 days, so thus the gift was given for every day of the year. Christmas was illegal in England from 1647 until 1660. I read a book once about this. Do you know why that was, Kenny? Think of the year 1647 to 1660, and who was...
Are you talking BC?
Who was... No, 1647 to 16...
Oh, I'm sorry, 1647. I thought you said 1647.
You know, who was in power in England at that time?
That was King George, wasn't it? Was it King George?
No, that was Henry, but it was Oliver Cromwell, remember? And he's the one that believed it was immoral to hold celebrations on one of the holiest days in the year. The celebration of Christmas was therefore a criminal offense which could lead to an individual being arrested if he or she was found guilty of condoning any kind of celebration during that period. So, do you like Christmas?
I love it. I hope everybody's enjoying the music that's playing in the background right now.
Well, I don't know. Can they hear it? Because I can't, but I'm not supposed to.
Put it up too much louder, Donnie.
Yeah, well, don't, because I mean, you don't want to drown out the host.
No, you can't do that.
The host.
I enjoy this time of year. It's a wonderful time. It's not about what you receive. It's about what you can.
Well, it's supposed to be, Kenny, but you must admit, I really feel for hard-working parents today, and I've seen them who can't give their kids the things that they'd like, who are really struggling. And that's why our show and why I take on government. I take on the lack of fiscal responsibility by both parties. They just spend. Money's going out of this country, billions and billions of dollars to help people who don't even like us, and we've got people in our own country that are doing without jobs, and it is immoral. It is just, to me, incredibly unbelievable in this great country. Other countries, I understand it's been going on for centuries, but we have not had a country like that. And now we do. Well, I'd like to look again at the history of Christmas. These were some of the things, Kenny, that I found that I've been, reading, and I'm going to do this I always do a Christmas show on my radio show, which will be this Saturday from 11 to 1.
It's every
at
Saturday.
WXTK. Yes, it's every Saturday, just like hopefully this will be every Thursday from 6 to 7. And by the way, we are also, this is run again on Tuesdays at 9 o'clock. Is it Monday at 11 at night?
Yes.
It's 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. 9 o'clock in the morning on Tuesdays. And what is it, Ken? Is it Monday at 11 at night?
I think it's Monday at 11 o'clock.
Okay, and then
but they can look at the PAC TV webpage.
And
find out when it plays. And they also can find it on YouTube by looking for the Don McKeag TV Show.
Yes.
It plays on YouTube.
I was telling Kenny, I got a call from a very dear friend in Colorado who caught this show on YouTube because there were 3 Cape Cod fellows out there visiting his son's new restaurant outside of Boulder, Colorado, and I had been in the restaurant business on the Cape, and my name came up, and lo and behold, the young men said, you can get him on YouTube, and they did. So
you can also see the television program in its entirety on Lucky Star Productions on Facebook.
Oh, Lucky Star Productions on Facebook.
On Facebook. You're playing there too.
Oh, goody. I didn't know that.
Oh, you're everywhere, Don.
I'm everywhere, yes. But anyway, again, all my life, of course, I was brought up as a Christian. I originally was a Protestant, Congregationalist, and I became a Catholic. My friends were all Catholics, almost all of them. And when I married, she was a Catholic. And I'd always, when I went to the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and I used to go to Mass with my friends in the fraternity, and I liked it. So I became a Catholic, probably 30 years ago. And but it's never mattered to me. Again, just like Republicans and Democrats and making that an issue, it's about God and about how comfortable you are in a particular church. It's not one better than the other. It's just in that letter I read which I believe was so well done about liberal Christians versus conservative Christians. You know, we're all searching for some kind of an understanding about life. Well, not all of us. Some people just don't seem to care, and that's okay too. But as a Christian, I've tried to honor the Christian religion. As I said, I've broken the rules many times, which I'm not proud of. But I also know that it's a forgiving God, and that I just have to try to do better, as all of us strive to do. And the biggest thing is to try to be kind to another person. I firmly believe that all of us are judged not by, as I mentioned, material things, but what kind of a son or daughter were we? What kind of a father or mother were we? What kind of a boss were we? What kind of an employee were we? What kind of a teammate? What kind of a fellow employee? All of those things, I believe, how you treat others is the measure of a successful person too. But anyway, here are the things that I find interesting. And the other thing is, there are a lot of non-Christians who are still celebrants of Christmas. They enjoy Christmas. They participate. This is what bothers me. I don't have a problem bringing the Muslim religion or any legitimate religion into the classroom and teaching the kids about it. That's what we should be doing. But to make it a battle, this is what we've allowed the powers that be in this politically correct culture, that is wrong. And I don't care, it's wrong. And that is, now they exclude the celebration of the Christian religion. And they've always used and misused Thomas Jefferson's idea of separation of church and state. It was never meant to eliminate religion in our public buildings. It was meant to make sure that wasn't one religion only. That's the difference. It wasn't to stop religion. Our founding fathers were deeply religious and tied to the Christian principles, and that's why they left the places they lived. They saw the corruption even in the church. Well, anyway, here is something that I had never seen. You still there, Kenny? No, he's gone out back. That's all right. No, you don't have to. I just couldn't see. Now, the popular myth puts Jesus' birth at December 5th. And of course, they call this the year 1. But the New Testament gives no date or year for Jesus' birth. The earliest gospel, St. Mark's, written about 65 BC, begins with the baptism of an adult Jesus. No, pardon me. They got a CE here, which I don't understand what the CE means. This suggests that the earliest Christians lacked interest in or knowledge of Jesus' birth date. The year of Jesus' birth was determined by Dionysius Exiguus, a Scythian monk. He was called abbot of a Roman monastery. And his calculations went as follows. This is kind of, those interested in history, this is something I had never seen or heard. In the Roman pre-Christian era, years were counted from ab urban condita, which means the founding of the city, Rome. Thus, 1 signifies the first year Rome was in existence, when it was founded. Then 5 signifies the 5th year of Rome's reign, etc. Okay? So now, Dionysius received a tradition that the Roman Emperor Augustus reigned 43 years and was then followed by the Emperor Tiberius. In the Bible, Luke 3, verses 1, line 23, indicates that when Jesus turned 30 years old, it was the 15th year of Tiberius's reign. If Jesus was 30 years old in Tiberius's reign, then he lived 15 years under Augustus, which would place his birth in August of the 28th year of that reign. Augustus. Now, Augustus took power in 727, so we would call that BC, 727 BC. Therefore, Dionysius put Jesus' birth at 754 BC. Kind of interesting. You there, Ken? No, he's out back again. Did you ever hear that, Kenny? Could you hear what I was saying?
I was trying to pay attention.
Oh, I don't mean to. I didn't know that whether you were just watching.
I was just checking on the quality and make sure you still looked handsome.
Oh yeah. Well, we won't dwell there too long. But did you hear that information? Isn't that interesting?
Did about the
Dionysius, and of course, this is what's so wonderful about today's technology is that they are now proving, not disproving, they're proving the Bible.
Yes.
And they're finding the locations, and they're finding a lot of the situations that were written about in the Bible to be true. Now, we're not talking about crumbling walls and Moses and that necessarily. But, so in other words, Jesus basically was born, according to Dionysius, and this was through his research at the time, and that he was born in 754. So that's kind of interesting.
It's very interesting.
Isn't it, huh? Yep. Now, however, Luke 1, verse 5 places Jesus' birth in the days of Herod, and Herod died in 750 BC. So that's 4 years before the original. But I mean, that can be accepted, right? 4 years difference.
Yeah.
But it does put it in perspective, especially since King Herod, of course, was so involved in Jesus and his death, never mind his birth. Joseph Fitzmyer, Professor Emeritus of Biblical Studies at the Catholic University of America, member of the Pontifical Biblical Commission, former president of Catholic Biblical Association, writes about the date of Jesus' birth. Though the year of Jesus' birth is not reckoned with certainty, the birth did not occur in AD 1, which is what we have just said. So the Christian era, supposed to have its starting point in the year of Jesus' birth, is based on a miscalculation introduced around 533 by Dionysius Exeget. So it's interesting. They're both understanding Dionysius' contribution. They're just questioning the actual years, but it's certainly much more informative, I think, to the past. Not that it's, again, any great shakes, but it does give you a little more. This is another thing he found in De Pascha's Comptus, an anonymous document believed to have been written in North Africa around 243 BC, placed Jesus' birth on March 28th. Clement, a bishop of Alexandria, around the year 215 BC, thought Jesus was born on November 18th, based on historical records. That's not BC. They give me the CE stuff, and I wish they'd define what that is. But anyway, this Fitzmyer guesses that Jesus' birth really occurred on September 11th, which should be the year 3 of this whatever new calendar, yearly calendar. Now, how did it become celebrated on December 25th then? Roman pagans first introduced the holiday of Saturnalia, a week-long, this is interesting, Kenny, how the actual facts, contradict what, we have learned in the past. December 17th through the 25th was a week-long period of lawlessness and pagan celebrations. During this period, Roman courts were closed, and Roman law dictated that no one could be punished for damaging property or injuring people during the week-long celebration. Can you imagine? People could beat each other up, smash property up between December 17th and 25th. The festival began when Roman authorities chose an enemy of the Roman people to represent the Lord of Misrule. This is in quotation. Each Roman community selected a victim whom they forced to indulge in food and other physical pleasures throughout the week. At the festival's conclusion, December 25th, Roman authorities believed they were destroying the forces of darkness and evil by brutally murdering this innocent man or woman. What a horrible beginning to the celebration of Christ's birth on December 25th. The ancient Greek writer, poet, and historian Lucian, in his dialogue entitled Saturnalia, describes the festival's observance in his time. In addition to human sacrifice, he mentions these customs: widespread intoxication, going from house to house while singing naked, rape and other sexual license, and consuming human-shaped biscuits, which, by the way, is still produced in England and some German bakeries during the Christmas season. In the 4th century, Christianity imported the Saturnalia festival, hoping to take the pagan masses in with it. Christian leaders succeeded in converting to Christianity large numbers of pagans by promising them that they could continue to celebrate the Saturnalia as Christians. The problem was there was nothing intrinsically Christian about Saturnalia. To remedy this, these Christian leaders named Saturnalia's concluding day, December 25th, to be Jesus' birthday. Isn't that something? Huh? That is an interesting, I think. What about you, Kenny? You don't have a comment on that?
I find that you're a very interesting guy, Donnie, in that I think it's a school teacher in you that you really research your information and really drill down on it, and you come forth with a lot of things. Some of these things that you're talking about now, years ago, I learned in, they call it Bible study.
Yes.
But we used to have to go for the nuns after Mass.
That's
on Sunday
correct.
morning, and they would talk about a lot of this stuff. So it's nice to hear it coming up again.
Oh yeah. So these years though you were aware of, huh?
Not the years.
See, that's the first time I was aware of some of the pagan celebrations.
The pagan celebrations were what the nuns were always talking about.
Yeah, and Saturnalia,
Yes.
I remember that.
Yes.
But I never had the
specific.
Yeah.
No.
Now we get into this. This is kind of interesting. I graduated from the University of Mass in Amherst. I'm very proud of that. And evidently a professor in history up there in Amherst at UMass, Stephen Nissenbaum, writes, in return for ensuring massive observance of the anniversary of the Savior's birth by assigning it to this resonant date, the Church, for its part, tacitly agreed to allow the holiday to be celebrated more or less the way it had always been. The earliest Christmas holidays were celebrated by drinking, sexual indulgence, singing naked in the streets, a precursor of modern caroling, they call that. Singing naked in the streets is the precursor to caroling.
Donnie, it's all
now,
coming
do you think
back.
they can bring that back?
It's all
I'm
coming
all
back.
for bringing that back.
Yeah, the pendulum is swinging, Donnie.
I never did. Now, did you know that? I have never heard that.
No, but I knew there was a lot of paganism, and that was a broad brush.
So it went from singing naked in the streets to caroling.
Well, now we know why they wore those hand warmers. Now we know why.
Now, I wonder if the naked ones were named Carol. Maybe that's where it came. Oh, good grief.
That's funny, Donnie.
Isn't that beautiful? Now, this I remember. Did you read this? I remember in college we had Increase Mather. Cotton Mather and Increase, they were both reverends. They were wacky. In 1687, they observed that the earliest Christians who first observed the Nativity on December 25th did not do so thinking that Christ was born in that month. But because the heathens' Saturnalia was at that time kept in Rome, and they were willing to have those pagan holidays metamorphosized into Christian ones. Because of its known pagan origin, Christmas was banned by the Puritans, and its observance was illegal in Massachusetts between 1659 and 1681. I never knew that. However, Christmas was and still is celebrated by most Christians.
Donnie?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You've got 3 minutes at the most.
Oh, wow. We're near the end. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this went quickly. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you'll stay with us on the Don McKeag Show and join us. And we have a telephone number, but we don't seem to get many calls. I do want to wish each and every one of you good health in the new year, but especially a Merry Christmas. And again, I would like to close with Ralph Waldo Emerson's poem, Once Again, which is the definition of success. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and affection of children, to win the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. God bless you all. Have a wonderful time. Stay well. And Don McKeag signing off. Thank you, Kenny, very much.